The Lost Frost Girl by Amy Wilson, Chapter 13. What's with your friend today? Avery's very tall. He seems to block out all the light when he falls in beside me on the way to geography. He frowns down at me as if he suspects all the wrong things in the world is my doing. Personal stuff, I say, trying to get around him. Hey, he says, cornering me. Wait a sec. He reaches out as if to touch my face. What are you doing? I jolt away. It's showing, he hisses. I put my hand up and feel a fine line of frost just along my hairline. It's nothing, I say, brushing at my hair as he watches. We both know that's not true, he says. I draw farther away from him, but it's as though the world has shrunk around us. The air is heavy with the smell of wood smoke. Is it him? Why does he smell of wood smoke? I look him up and down, noticing again the copper glint in his eyes, the tawny hair, and my mind doesn't want to go there, but there's something about him. Something that makes me think of that old book of Mom's and that other world of magic and impossible creatures. You can feel it, can't you? Avery insists. We're the same. We're from the same place. This can't be happening. This is my normal day. This is school. Nothing's more normal than school, and he's ruining it all. I lean against the wall behind me, putting my hands against the smooth plaster, relieved to have something solid at my back, but my heart stutters as he watches me. My skin prickles, and ice spreads around my fingers, blooming out across the wall. I can feel it, though I don't turn to see it. I don't want to see it. There's a look of something like wonder on Avery's face for just an instant, and then he shakes his head and pulls me away from the wall. You need to be more careful, he whispers. Can't you control yourself at all? I don't know what you mean, I say, pulling away from him. Who are you? The main doors bang open, and a flurry of autumn leaves spiral in on a cool breath, skittering down the corridor toward us. I gape at the unnatural shapes they're making, and Avery takes a deep breath, as if he's about to say something. But before either of us can speak, the bell rings, and he strides away from me into the classroom. Ice on the walls and autumn leaves with a life of their own. So much for a normal day. Nothing makes sense. I don't know who Avery is or where he's come from. How does he know what I can do when nobody else sees it? Geography is torture, and then it's art, and the owl I've been sculpting out of clay is suddenly cringeworthy. There's something so naive about the way it stands there happily on its little branch, as though it's never even caught a sniff of danger. I swear Avery rolls his eyes when he sees it. How is he in all my classes anyway? Not even Mallory is in all of them, and we deliberately tried to be. Thank goodness that's over, she says when we meet at the gate later, pulling her coat tight against the bitter cold. The sky is a relentless steel gray, and the trees are starting to look stark without their leaves. Nightmare day. Even Connor tried to be nice, and that was probably the worst of all of it. He'll have forgotten by tomorrow, I tell her as we start toward home. You did it, Mallory. You got through the day. We got through the day. Now I just need to get through the night, she sighs. What's it going to be like, Owl? I don't know. Weird, I suppose. You could stay at mine. Can't leave her on her own, can I? She says, scuffing her feet along the ground, her eyes fixed on the pavement. Thanks, though. Maybe at the weekend? Definitely. And you know she's got friends, hasn't she? She'll be okay, Mal. It's just going to be so strange without Dad there, she says. I mean, he's always there. He's not even one of those dads who goes to work sometimes. He's just always there, being annoying. Her voice trails off, and I don't know what to say. It's funny how different our home lives have always been. I suppose everyone's home lives are different. At least I never had any of the fighting. Never really had to worry about Mom either. She's always been, well, Mom. Maybe it'll be good for them, I try. Maybe they'll realize how much they miss each other and he'll come back and they'll be happier. Do you think? She looks up at me with all this hope in her tear-filled eyes. And I feel mean because it's not likely, is it? And now she'll feel even worse if it doesn't happen. Well, it's a trial separation, I say, to convince us both. I mean, that It's just the same as taking a break from someone. The point is to miss them and realize how good you've got it, isn't it? I suppose so, she says. I didn't really think of it like that. It seemed more like they were doing it to get rid of each other. Well, we can hope, I say firmly, because there doesn't seem to be anything else to say. I pull my hat down farther over my head, shivering and hoping I'm not about to start turning blue all over. Connor said you were talking to Avery earlier? Mallory says with a sidelong look and a bit of a smirk. Oh, yeah, that was weird. What were you talking about? He asked why you were upset, and I told him personal reasons. Then he just sort of stared at me, really. He's got a thing for you, she says. Oh, I don't know, I stammer. Ah, you're blushing. It's like love at first sight, Owl. No, it isn't. You don't believe in things like that anyway. Yeah, but you're a bit more receptive, aren't you? And anyway, he's not that bad. Just keeps to himself from what I can see, and he's quite dramatic looking. How about Justin? I asked to change the subject. Dunno, she says, suddenly all moody again. He's all with the looks, but you know he's still with Daisy. Not right, is it? There's always Connor, you know. Owl! Well, it's true. She makes a vomiting sound, and we both grin. And then we're on the corner of her street, and all the laughter goes out of her eyes. I'll text you later, I say, giving her a quick hug. Hope it's all right tonight, Mal. I'll get through, she says, blowing her cheeks out with a big sigh. See you tomorrow. She trails away from me, her footsteps getting slower and slower as she draws closer to her house. It's a nice house, one of those old ones with big bay windows. Her mom works from home, translating legal documents from German to English. There's usually baking going on and amazing cakes and cookies to raid from the tin. I wonder if she'll have done any baking today. I imagine walking into the house to find it a bit quieter and colder. Everything the same as yesterday, except not at all. I like her mom and dad. They're not exactly gushing. They feel a bit uptight compared to my mom. Everything neat and tidy and well organized. Their smiles a bit distracted while they check out the mud on your shoes. But they're nice enough. Poor Mallory. Chapter 14. I've made a new decision. I don't quite know where it came from, but something about today has made everything turn in my head. Like if anything can happen, then maybe I should be trying to make the things I want to happen. I think of Avery, stirring up the wind, telling me we have something in common. The frost in my hair and the rush of autumn leaves. He knows far more than I do about it all. And then I think of Mallory, who has no control over what's going on at home. And honestly, none of it makes sense. My normal day was about as far as you can get from normal. So I've eaten my leftover doll like a good girl tonight, and Mom's got half an eye on me, but most of her mind is with her work. And I told her I'm going to study for my math test next week, when really I'm going to do some research. Yep, I'm Googling Jack Frost. There's a movie where he's a boy, a guardian of the world, and then there are loads of images of him as an old man, laying his hands on the outspread leaves of winter trees, drawing icicles out of gutters, sealing windows with a touch. When does frost actually appear? Is it really all down to one person? How could one person cover the whole of the world? Because it's always winter somewhere, isn't it? I get lost in my research and find out more than I ever thought I'd know about frost. It's water vapor, basically, which condenses as ice on things like grass and rooftops, but none of it helps me work out why I'm prone to breaking out in my own private weather storm. And it doesn't help me to control it either. It's happened a few times today. Nothing too dramatic, just a feeling that creeps up on me, and then there it is. Beautiful frosted shapes on the skin between my fingers, along my jawbone. Owl, are you still working? I click off Google and pull my book toward me. Yes. Do you want a hot drink? No, thanks. I'm going to work for a bit longer. She pokes her head in, her eyes slightly distracted, as they always are when she's stuck on something. Don't be too late, love. School tomorrow. Okay. She pauses, looking me up and down. Everything all right? Yep, just working. Well, go careful. Is she psychic? It wouldn't surprise me. Either way, she leaves me to it, and after a few minutes, I have a really stupid idea. I'm going to find him. It's crazy. How does a person go about finding a fairy tale character? I mean, he's not going to be dancing over the rooftops, is he? Is he? I've tried to tell myself it's all nonsense, but Mom doesn't lie. And normal girls don't cry ice, don't stare out of dark windows imagining what it would really be like if they found Jack Frost and he was their father. So I have to try. And if it really is all real, then there will be something that will lead me to him, or him to me. It's worth a try. I can't just sit here forever anyway, wondering, questioning myself and everything I've ever known. My scalp itches with irritation as I fret over it, and when I go to scratch, my hair is crisp with frost. That decides it. I pull on a dark sweater and my boots and prowl through the apartment like a burglar, creeping out of the door when I'm sure Mom's back up in the studio. It's bitterly cold outside, and it rained earlier in the evening, so there are tiny puddles in all the gutters. I tread in one by accident as I head across the road, making for the suspension bridge, and when I look down in the water, it's freezing all around my foot. I reach down to touch it, and where my fingers meet the water, little veins of white appear spreading across the surface. Wow! I look around, afraid someone will be watching, but nobody's about. It's nearly midnight and too cold for anyone to want to be outside. I tread through all the puddles I can find, a thrill rushing through me every time I turn back to see the trail of frozen water I'm leaving behind me. I jump into the next big one, feeling a bit foolish and a bit excited, completely astonished when a cloud of pale ice crystals rises up around me on impact, spinning in the night air before drifting on to the ground. It's like being in a snow globe, my very own little world, all of ice, and for a moment I'm so enchanted I forget about my mission. And then the moon breaks through the clouds, and the world seems to blaze silver around me. Silver. And then I remember Jack. I run on, every so often looking around to see the traces of winter I've left behind. The moon seems to urge me onward, onward, and my feet fly faster and faster as the world around me sparkles silver with new frost. By the time I get to the bridge, energy is pumping through my body, a hot, cold sensation I've never known before. I lean against the railing, looking up at the moon, a grin spreading over my face at the infinite possibilities that suddenly seem spread out before me. If there's magic in the world, this is it, and I'm part of it. The feeling thrills through me, and then a creaking sound breaks the silence behind me. When I turn, the whole of the railing has been wrapped in a thick layer of ice that cascades to the bridge itself, sparkling in the moonlight and throwing jagged new shapes onto the hard, frost covered ground. My fingers look almost like they were cast in ice themselves as they grip the railing. My as my heart pounds and the ice spreads farther, farther, until it feels like I could cover the world with it, standing here forever just watching the magic take over. This is Jack's power. This is mine. What is this? Demands a voice. I spin to see who is speaking, but nobody's there. What are you? What do you want here? I look around, trying to find the source of the voice. It's not a whisper exactly, but it's not quite normal speech either. It sounds more like a hissing of an old steam train than anything else. Answer me! I can't. I don't know. There's a soft booming sound, and the whole bridge seems to vibrate. I look down to the other edge and I can see it. A tide of ice coming right at me. And not only on the railings, not only a thin frost of it on the ground, but a great swell, a roaring wall of ice blooming over everything, jagged ridges of it forming on either side, and a swath through the middle. The lights on the bridge make the whole thing glow. And then finally, I see a shadowy figure stalking toward me, his arms held low and wide as if conducting. Oh, help! I step back, but I'm too late. The tide swells and bursts around me, and I don't think. I just leap up out of its path, landing awkwardly on warped ridges of ice thicker than I've ever seen. I balance myself, my heart tripping in my chest as he gets closer, and I tell myself, this is what I wanted. It's what I gambled on. I stand in his path, my fists clenched at my sides. It's Jack Frost. He is like nothing I would have ever imagined. Taller, wilder, more powerful than any of my mom's stories warned me. The air around him blurs with 1,000 little shards of ice. His dark hair is tipped with frost, his eyebrows thick with it. He is pale skinned, the angles in his face shadowed by the blue tinge in the hollows of his cheekbones and beneath his eyes. Are you Jack Frost? My small voice rings out, surprising both of us. Some call me thus, he says, leaning forward to study me, his gaze fierce. And you? You have been making your own small winter here? What creature are you? Do you seek to challenge me? He tilts his head to one side, his movements all slightly too fast, too stilted. A hungry grin sending a shiver down my spine. You may, if you wish. I like a challenge, and you may be worthy. I could hear your play 1,000 miles away. I take a step back. This is not a man. This is not a father. This is an elemental creature who thinks I challenge him. There is nothing in his face of kindness or humanity. Nothing I can find there to relate to. He thinks I am a creature like him, but I'm not. I'm just not. I turn and run, and there's a crack of brittle laughter behind me, and my whole body is ringing with the shock of it all. My mind a fizzing, confused storm of too many images and too many emotions. I run as fast as I can, for as long as I can, and then I collide with something, and everything goes black. Chapter 15. This was part of the world, he told her, and there had never been another like her there before. For centuries, since the Norsemen first named him, he had been alone there, his only companions the wolves of winter and the owl, who appeared when he had work to do. She would call him back to her world, he said, and there he would lay the first traces of winter, signaling to all nature that it was time to rest. It was in her world that he would meet with his brothers and sisters, he told her, while they walked in the mountains. The air was cold and sharp, and her breath steamed before her, but not his. All the world around there was an extension of him. There was no part of him that did not fit there. If he was like no man she had ever known, then his family was wilder, stranger than he by far. They were the powers of the world, names learned in legend and fable. They were all of Mother Earth's devising. The north wind, which spread the clouds and whipped up the seas, roaring in full storms, and at other times with only a whisper, playing among autumn leaves and rattling at the windows. The Queen of May, who heralded new beginnings, and Lady Midday, who brought heat wave and summer madness. The autumnal Earl of October, and the wise old green man, and the Lady of the Lake, who has her own kingdom beneath clear waters. He did not see them often, he told her, only when they were called to Mother Earth's royal fay court by the lesser spirits, the winged fairies and the tiny nimble sprites, all in tribes dedicated to air or fire, water or earth, that they remember their duty to her and do their work as it should be done. Even in chaos there is order, he said, everything leading to another, keeping the world alive. We are part of that cycle. She did not know if she was awake or if she dreamed. She did not question as he held her hand and led her safely up crumbling, shifting hills of snow as the light changed, and the blue-white shadows over the land grew longer beneath the pale sun. She listened to his stories and heard his loneliness, and her own heart panged, for she knew that she was only a brief interlude for him, and he for her. It does not change, he said, looking out over the lake. All is still here. All is quiet. Sometimes it is what I need when I have been in the world of men and seen the creep of concrete, the swell of smoke on the horizon, and sometimes when I am angry when I am here, for it is my prison, and when I am let out it is only to do my duty. I cannot make the world a different place. I can only do just as I should. It is all I am, all I was made for. And yet, she said, finding her voice in a cloud of steam, and yet you have some power and liberty. You have form and feeling. Does that not count? Does that not make you capable of something more than your limits? He did not answer her then. His silver eyes gleamed as he looked down at her, and then he swept her up with him, sliding and tumbling down the hill, landing in a spray of snow and ice, and she flailed on that frozen lake, but he did not. His bare feet were firm as though they were on solid ground, and as the sun set, turning the whole world a rose gold pink, he showed her how to dance. Chapter 16. I opened my eyes to darkness so complete that for a moment I think I hadn't been opened them at all. Then the moon breaks through the clouds and a face appears, familiar and not familiar. Probably the last face in the world I need to see while I'm lying all confused on the ground. Avery. He reaches down to help me sit. Are you all right? What were you doing? He asks. I don't know. I shift back, straining my eyes until I've worked out we're beneath a massive oak tree in the middle of a field. It's the old park. I've flown kites here, made daisy chains, tried my best at cartwheels. Mallory put me to shame every time. Shared picnics with Mom, but I'm not sure I've ever been here in full night. All the shapes that would normally be so familiar are like little bits of nightmare. Fences creaking, spiny trees clustered together like gnarled old men, and for a moment I'm sure I see strange shapes darting along the bushes in the distance. Little otherworldly creatures, ready to chase and pounce and gibber and howl. When I look back, there's nothing at all, just a solid line of black where the bushes are. I shake my head and pull myself up against the tree, ignoring the wobble in my knees. If there was something there, it's gone now. What are you doing here? I ask, making my voice firm. Why are you here? You rushed into me, he says. Don't you remember? You came right at me and then sort of collapsed. I staggered about a bit and then you managed to carry you here. But why? I look around as a low autumn breeze begins to play with the leaves on the ground, picking them up and shuffling them like cards before throwing them out in all directions. I give Avery a sharp look as my hair blows back from my face. His eyes are focused on the leaves, his expression distracted. Why you? Why here? I don't know. I was lucky, I suppose. He shakes his head. The leaves drift silently back to the ground. I didn't know where else to take you. I don't know where you live. What are you doing out here anyway? I was looking for someone. He stares at me. Did you go looking for Jack? Did you find him? What did I find? Not what I was looking for. I try to forget the way Jack looked, the way he acted when he saw me. How do you know I was looking for Jack? I know who you are, he says, his voice gentle. I told you we come from the same place. And even if I didn't know before, it's clear. It shows on you. What shows? What place? You're connected to Jack. You have the same way with ice and frost. There were rumors of a daughter. Rumors? At the royal court, he says. The royal Fae court of Mother Earth. He says it with such reverence. The royal Fae court of Mother Earth? All the little bits of nightmare seem to come to life again, and for a moment I think that perhaps I'm just going to drown in all of this, that nothing will ever be the same again, no matter what I want. Then I think of Mom discovering my empty room. How long have I been out? It must be hours by now. I have to go, I tell Avery, dragging myself from the tree. I can't just sit around here under all the trees all night. I have to go home. Let me help you, he says as I stagger forward, narrowly avoiding colliding with him. If everything else weren't quite so overwhelming, I'd be dying of embarrassment just from all of the swooning around in front of him. Not that he looks overly bothered by it. In fact, I wonder as I look up and see the way his copper eyes shine, as if he's enjoying it all. No thanks, I say, my voice stiff. I'll manage, Owl. I look up at him again. All I can see in his face is concern, kindness even. I'm not gonna hurt you. We're not all monsters. But that's exactly what I think Jack is. And maybe so am I. Maybe the world is full of monsters, and Avery is one of them, no matter how kind he might be acting. I need to go. I turn my back on him and make to stride away, but I don't get very far. My knees are trembling. My head suddenly starts to throb, and for a second I think I'm going to throw up. I pull away when I feel his arm around my waist, but I don't have the energy to do it properly. And actually, there's something quite comforting about the way he smells, reminding me of bonfires and roasting chestnuts. "Where are we going?" he asks in a mild tone. "Cumberland Road," I mutter. And there you have it. Dragged back home by the weirdest, most unknowable boy in school, after an evening spent freezing puddles and being petrified by my supernatural father. Not a lot of room for normal anymore, I'd say. Chapter 17. I wake all in a hurry, thrashing my arms around and jumping up, pulling myself out of a frozen sea, as a massive old iron boat comes right at me, dark and tall, creaking beneath sheets of ice. The mast is a mass of icicles that could fall at any moment, and on the deck are legions of strange, shadowy creatures, all of them watching me with glowing eyes. "Owl?" Out of the darkness, my mother's eyes round and bright. She comes toward me and puts her hands on my arms, pushing me back to sit on the edge of the bed as familiar shapes of the room come into focus. "What was that?" she asks. Dreaming. "Did you try the incantation again?" "No." "Where were you, Owl?" Her voice is soft with relief or worry. I can't tell which. I try to keep my mind on the here and now, but memories of last night keep crashing over me, one with the other. Frozen puddles, the bridge beneath the moon, Jack Frost striding toward me over a sea of ice, the tree, Avery. "Owl?" "What time is it?" "6." I groan and fall back into bed. "Need more sleep." "I'll wake you in an hour." "And Owl?" "We're going to talk tonight. I'll even buy the pizza and ice cream." "'Kay." She lets out a small huff of impatience and leaves me to it. It's warm in the apartment this morning. I feel like I could lie here forever and let all the busy, buzzing thoughts float around just outside of the part of my brain that cares. And later there'll be pizza and ice cream. A proper family evening. I mean, without my father, of course. Can't imagine him sitting there with cheese down his chin. "Mallory!" I roll over, grab my phone, and look at it. Oh no! 3 missed calls and 2 texts, all from Mallory last night. "Hey, can we talk? No, it's late. Been a terrible evening." "Where are you?" I said I'd text her and I completely forgot. "So sorry." I text, my tongue stuck between my teeth as I consider the lie I'm about to tell her. I can't exactly describe all that happened in a text, can I? "Was doing homework. Fell asleep. See you in a bit. Sorry it was awful, Mal. Big hug. XXXX." I press send, a niggle in my belly from lying to my best friend. I'll tell her everything, I decide. As soon as I've made up for not being around last night, I'll get her to believe, somehow. The second I see Mallory standing on the corner of her street, leaning against the wall with her arms folded, I know it's not going to be the day I tell her about my father. To be honest, it's kind of a relief. I walk up to her knowing that I don't even have to try to explain everything that happened last night. How Jack looked, the power that came from him, how I ran away straight into Avery. I still don't know what's for I still don't know about that for sure. Jack's not the father I dreamed of. He wasn't even like the man I pictured when Mom told her stories. She always said he was wild. I just didn't know what that really looked like. So, I'm just gonna lie through my teeth. Normal is back on the table. Hey, Mal, I say. Hey, Owl. She sounds really distant and weary. Sorry about last night. It's all right, she says with a glance at me as we start walking. You look terrible. You must be coming down with something. Yeah, probably, I sniffle. But anyway, do you want to talk about it? She doesn't speak for what seems like a really long time, and I'm starting to feel a bit awkward, wondering if I should ask again or change the subject when she finally opens up. It was just so weird, she says. The house was really quiet, and Mom was doing all the usual things, making dinner, asking about school, moaning about work, but it all felt wrong. Then Dad phoned me just after dinner, and she left the room because she knew it was him, and he was all forced happy about Uncle Simon's spare room smelling of socks and how he hoped I was doing my homework. And I felt a bit like screaming then because what does that matter all right now? Anyway, then Mom came in and she didn't ask about him because she was acting all awkward, like she didn't know what to say. So I told her about the socks thing, and she made this comment about Uncle Simon always being a bit immature, as though that's what Dad is being like. She trails off, shaking her head. And I just felt so angry with both of them for messing things up and then not even talking about the right things. Like it's all business as usual and nobody's got any feelings about anything. It sounds really awkward. Yeah, it was. She huffs and tucks her chin into her scarf. It's so cold today. Freezing, I say. Though to be honest, it hadn't really occurred to me. Maybe it's a daughter of Jack Frost thing? I pull my hat on anyway and hunch my shoulders a bit, scuffing my feet along the frozen pavement. After a moment, Mallory threads her arm through mine, and it feels good. Like she's helping, even if she doesn't know it. I will tell her, just not yet. And that's the end of the chapter.